Lesson 20-2 talks about geometric series. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about partial sums for a geometric sequence and calculating those values. So we're on page 312 in your book. You need something to write with, and you need a you need a calculator, okay, for this lesson, or Desmos. So we're going to be doing series today, right? So the sum of the terms of a geometric sequence is called a geometric series. Now, if you know all the numbers in that series, then you can add them up, okay? But if you don't know the series, then we're going to have something called a finite series, okay? Where we're asked to find the series of specific amount of terms. So if you don't know all the terms in that series, what you have to do is use this kind of formula here. It's a big fraction formula. So it's the same kind of terms we've been using for this whole unit. But remember, A1 is still your first term. Okay, we learned in the previous video, R stands for the common ratio. And our N in this formula, N is the number we're finding, right? So if it says find S10, 10, it would be the N. Okay. So we're actually just going to skip to the next page and do some examples here. So these try A, B, and C, I'm going to go through with you. Okay, so in A, they want us to find S5, so that's our N value right there, for the geometric series that has the first term of 5 and the ratio of 2. Okay, so again, all we're doing is using a new formula, so we're just going to plug everything into it and see what we get. Okay, so our first term is 5, and then we have this big fraction here, so it's 1 minus the ratio to the nth power divided by 1 minus the ratio. Okay. Now our calculator is going to be our best friend for these problems, so I'm going to pull up my calculator. Move it over so I can see the problem a little better. So I'll show you a couple ways to type it in. It kind of depends on what kind of calculator you're using. If you have a newer calculator, if you hit alpha y equals, hit enter, you should be able to get this fraction bar. So if you have this option, it should make your life a lot easier, because then you can see where your fractions are and just type it in exactly as it looks. Close that parenthesis. So if you see, I typed it in exactly as it's kind of written on my paper. But I hit enter, you'll get the answer. Okay. Now, if you don't have that fraction feature, you could still type it in. You're just going to have to use a lot of parentheses. Okay, so you're going to put a parenthesis around the numerator, 1 minus 2 to the 5th power. There we go. And then divide for our fraction, parenthesis around the denominator. And then close the big parenthesis from the beginning. So there's another way to do it. The last way I can show you is if you just do the fraction part first. So 1 minus 2 to the 5th divided by our denominator, 1 minus 2. You can hit enter and then times it by 5. You'll get the same answer either way. So I got 155 for all three of these answers. So again, it just depends on what kind of calculator you have, how you feel comfortable typing it in. But there's our answer, 155. Okay, let's look at B. B has a similar thing, except this one, the sequence is written out. So they want us to find S6. So there's my N. Okay, the first term in that pattern we can see is 256. So we just need now to figure out our ratio. So to go from 256, 64, 16, 4, maybe I'll look at these two values because I don't need a calculator for those. So as you can see, we're dividing by 4, right? Remember, anytime we're dividing, our ratio is a fraction. So our ratio here is 1/4. So let's plug it into our formula. We have the first term times 1 minus our ratio to the nth power divided by 1 minus my ratio. Okay. So again, this looks a little messy, but let the calculator worry about that. We have 256. Put in my fraction here. 1 minus, I'm just going to use 0.25 instead of a fourth. That's a little easier to type in. Close that parenthesis. So if I punch that in, I should get my answer. So 241.25. So remember, what these problems are asking us to find is the sum of all those terms added up. So if I take 256 and add it to 64 plus 16 plus 4 and do that for the first 6 terms, it should give me this value. Okay. Now C is using sigma notation. I'm going to do that on the next slide so I have a little more room. But remember, for sigma notation, that's all in the calculator. So if your calculator has the sigma button, you can use it. You just have to hit math. It's towards the bottom here. There it is. So if you have a newer calculator, you should have this function. We just have to type in exactly as the problem has it, but we'll use x instead of n. N goes from 1 to 10. And then you just type in that expression. So 2 times 3 raised to the x minus 1 power. Hit enter, should give us our answer. So a pretty big answer here, 59,048. Okay, if you have an older calculator, then you're not going to have that sigma option on your calculator. So instead, we can use Desmos, like I've given you guys before. Hopefully by now you have this link kind of bookmarked for yourself, but we just have to adjust the sliders. So we're going from 1 to 10. And now we just have to change this function here to be the expression that we have. Let me go back and look at that. So it's 2 times 3 raised to the, now we're using n in this problem, so I have to use n minus 1. Oops. In parentheses, so that's all included. And you can see right away it spits out that answer right here, the same one I got from my calculator. So 59,048. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys try one. Okay, here's a different problem. So again, write this down on your paper somewhere because it's not in your book. But go from 1 to 8. Now again, if you're using Desmos, this is going to be n instead of x, but it's all the same. So go ahead and try this one and see what you get for the sum using sigma notation. Okay, if you did everything right, you should have gotten this big answer here. So negative 390,624.